Here's the thing. Jim Acosta is a third-rate journalist and a clown. But I'd rather live in a country, when we step back a little bit from disliking him personally, I would rather live in a country in which the occasional knucklehead can give the top man a headache from time to time than a country in which that can't happen. So even though I don't think the First Amendment or the Fifth Amendment decrees that Jim Acosta needs to get his press pass back, I do believe it is generally a good thing that the press can annoy the President of the United States. The reason the press is suffering the Donald Trump backlash that it's suffering is because they didn't do their job for 8 years. That is why, if they treated Barack Obama like this, and they have this delusional sense that they once asked Barack Obama a hard question. It was something like, "What time is it?" or something. You know, what enchants you most about the presidency? They have this delusional idea that they covered Obama. They didn't cover Obama. They covered up for Obama for 8 years. That scandal-free administration that included scandal after scandal, the IRS scandal, the Fast and Furious scandal, one scandal after another, the scandal of the Iran deal, the scandal of dumping cash into the pockets of the Iranians for nothing, for no reasons, because they're going to get their nuclear weapon anyway. All of those scandals were left uncovered. They covered them up instead. And that's what they're paying for now. And that's why Donald Trump gets away with the stuff he does, because otherwise, even I would attack him. I don't want to see the President of the United States throwing reporters out. Even a bad reporter like Jim Acosta, who's just a grandstander throwing his opinion at the President, I want those guys there. The problem is you cannot show up after 8 years and put on your reporter pants again and say, suddenly we're reporters. So this is the problem that I have with this idea that we stand in solidarity. There was an exchange. Chris Wallace had Trump on. And I thought, Trump said a couple of things that I would question, but not on this subject. But they had an exchange. Chris Wallace and Trump had this back and forth exchange in which Wallace kind of did this whole thing. The press stands in solidarity. Let's just play this clip. This is number 7.
I'm saying fake news, false reporting, dishonest reporting, of which there is a lot. And I know it. See, I know it because I'm a subject of it. A lot of people don't know it. But when I explain it to them, they understand it. And Chris, you know that better. You don't have to sit here and act like a perfect little, wonderful, innocent angel. I know you too well. I knew your father too well. That's not your gene. But let me tell you,
I think some of the coverage of you, sir, and I've said it on the record, is biased. But I don't think that they're
most of it is biased.
I don't know, but the idea that you call us the enemy of the people.
I'm not calling you that.
I'm talking about we're all together.
You don't understand it.
We're all together.
No. I'm not calling you.
It doesn't matter whether you call. When you call CNN and the New York Times, we're in solidarity, sir.
I am calling fake news. Fake reporting is what's tearing this country apart. Because people like things that are happening, and they're not hearing about it.
Now, Trump is absolutely right about this. He's right twice. There's immense fake reporting when you have between 94 and 96% of the coverage of Trump has been negative, when the economy is so good, when ISIS is gone, when the judges are good, when the regulations cut back and business is thriving. All of that's not covered 96% negative. He is absolutely right. And the problem is that the problem with Wallace's point of view is that it is the opposite problem we have with Jim Acosta. We want clowns like Jim Acosta to be able to annoy the president. I want that to happen. My gripe is that it didn't happen for 8 years. That's my real gripe, not the way they treat Trump. It's the way they treated Obama and the way they treated Trump. But the solidarity of the press is masking a genuine dysfunction in the press, and it is keeping them from doing what needs to be done, which is they need to reform themselves. They really do. And we can't reform them because of the First Amendment. That's the way it should be. That's right. We shouldn't be able to force them to reform. They should reform themselves. So instead of Chris Wallace and all those people on Face the Nation saying, oh yes, the press is one, we are one, we stand together as one, they should be, why are they not looking at themselves? Why are they not saying, hey, is there a problem here? If Donald Trump can curse us out and half the country says he's right, it's really more than half the country that agrees that the press is biased. Something like 70%, 72% of the country believes that the press is what is tearing us apart, as Trump said. They're the ones who believe that they're the ones who are dividing us. If that's a problem, why are there no conversations like this? And the reason there are no conversations like this is because the system generates its own logic, right? Let's say you're the New York Times, a former newspaper. I call them that as a joke, but it's true. They used to be a great newspaper. Back in the 1980s, they were a genuinely good newspaper. They were genuinely fair. They did all kinds of studies of their coverage. Conservatives still hated them, but they were generally fair to the Republicans and Democrats. Now they're a left-wing rag. They're a sophomoric left-wing rag. A bunch of college kids could put out a better newspaper than the New York Times. They have wonderful resources, and because of their reputation, they have wonderful reporters. So some of the reporting is actually talented, but it's not fair coverage. It's hysterical. It's like a little girl who's seen a mouse. It's just one constant high-pitched scream. Okay, so what happens when a paper becomes like that? The only people who read it are the people who believe it, the people who think that that's a true worldview. Go to New York. It's amazing. You go to New York, you talk to people who read the New York Times. They really do think the house is on fire. They think everything is going wrong. Just country's falling apart. Never mind the good economy. Never mind the word peace. Never mind that ISIS is gone. Never mind all that. Never mind it. It's just, I read it in the Times, and this is really happening. Once you're there, once you're in that place, your audience, and Maureen Dowd and others have reported this, writers in the New York Times have reported this, your audience will not tolerate deviation. I mean, look, we have some of this at the Daily Wire. Every time I come out and I say that Trump's rudeness is a problem, I hear from you guys saying, don't you insult, don't clutch your pearls, because we're a right-wing place. We're a right-wing place. You want to hear right-wing opinions. That's your right, but we don't pretend to be a newspaper. We don't say this is all the news that's fit to print. I mean, look at me. If I wanted to give you all the news that's fit to print, you'd have to get somebody else with a much more balanced point of view. I am a conservative, and I tell you things from a conservative point of view. Once you do that, your audience demands more. Your audience demands more. If the New York Times had integrity, if they had honesty, if they had decency, if they wanted to live up to their masthead, they would start to hire some people like me on their desk, on the news desk, saying this story gets in, that story gets in. No, wait, that's a hit job. You can't do that. Hey, this is not fair to Trump. People who supported Trump, they would hire them. They can't. Even if they did now, the staff itself is so woke, so left, so radical that they would protest. They would have one of those meetings where everybody got together and said, you can't hire this person. He'd be fired in a day, like Kevin Williamson was fired from The Atlantic. Once you're in that cycle, the cycle just insists on increasing itself. And that's the problem. That's the problem with this idea that Jim Acosta represents everybody, because the problem is Jim Acosta does represent the whole press, because they've all become a bunch of left-wing showboats and buffoons. Now, while I'm talking